My name is Cruz. I'm 43, but life has aged me in ways no calendar can measure. There was once a time when I felt whole, when I was filled with ambition, hope, and faith. I had a direction, and every step seemed to lead me closer to something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, that light dimmed. Each disappointment, each struggle, chipped away at me until I felt nothing but a hollow emptiness inside. I tried to mask this darkness, to be the person others expected me to be. I held on to a smile, showed up for my family, for my friends, but each encounter only reminded me of what I'd lost within myself. Days turned to weeks, then months, and the emptiness grew heavier, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. Seeking relief, I turned to drinking, thinking it would quiet the storm inside me. Cigarettes became a ritual, a habit that filled the empty spaces of my day. But these comforts were temporary, leaving me feeling even more lost when their effects wore off. I began to see my family and friends as strangers, people who once mattered but now seemed like ghosts in a life I barely recognized. Each passing day felt like a slow, agonizing descent into a darkness from which I couldn't escape. One night, as I sat alone in my room, the silence was so thick it felt suffocating. The walls seemed to close in on me, the air growing thin and heavy. I wanted to scream, but what would it change? I felt trapped, desperate, and utterly alone. I thought, maybe if I leave this world, I'll finally find peace. The decision felt final, and as I closed my eyes, I thought I'd be stepping into an endless release from this pain. But what awaited me was not peace. It was the beginning of a journey that would strip away every illusion I'd ever held. As my consciousness faded, I braced for the silence, the nothingness I'd expected. But instead, I found myself awakening into a new and terrifying reality. My eyes opened to a darkness deeper than any night, a void so thick and vast that it seemed to press down on me from all sides. It wasn't just an absence of light, it was an absence of warmth, of life itself. I tried to move, but every motion felt slow, as if an invisible weight was holding me back. My limbs felt paralyzed, my breath shallow and labored. Panic surged through me as I tried to scream, to make any sound, but my voice was lost, swallowed by the oppressive silence. I stood there, frozen, as the darkness closed in around me, an endless, suffocating void. I realized then that this was no peaceful release. There was no comfort, no relief here, only an all-consuming isolation. My mind began to race, trying to make sense of where I was. I took hesitant steps forward, hoping to find some escape, but it was like wading through quicksand. Every step sank me deeper into the void, and with each passing moment, the hopelessness intensified. In this place, every memory of my former life felt distant, like a faint whisper. The pain I had hoped to escape was still there, magnified by an eerie, unbreakable silence. There was no peace here, only a new kind of suffering, one that was more vivid, more unyielding than anything I'd known in life. As I wandered through the darkness, I began to sense movement around me. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, forming into shapes, human shapes, though twisted and tormented in ways I could barely comprehend. These weren't just shadows, they were souls, each one trapped in its own agony, each one bearing the weight of its earthly desires. The first figures I saw were those who had lived with pride as their guiding force. Their faces were strained, their expressions twisted by the weight of their egos, which now imprisoned them. They were haunted, caught in a state of perpetual regret, as if under a gaze of constant judgment. Their pride, which once made them feel invincible, was now their tormentor, a silent force that stripped them of any remaining dignity. Then I saw others, frantically grasping at piles of gold and jewels, treasures that crumbled into dust the moment they touched them. The more they reached, the more everything slipped away, and with every failure, their frustration grew. Their greed, an insatiable hunger, had led them to an endless cycle of emptiness and despair. The treasures they once prized now only deepened their suffering. Further on, I encountered souls whose eyes were hollow, missing, leaving nothing but empty sockets. These were the envious, those who had spent their lives consumed by jealousy, forever looking at what others had. But here, there was nothing to covet, nothing to desire. They wandered aimlessly, their desires unfulfilled, haunted by a loneliness that could never be soothed. Finally, I came upon those who had surrendered to lust and desire. Their bodies burned with an unquenchable fire, a punishment that mirrored the passions they had pursued in life. They reached out in desperation, hoping to satisfy a hunger that could never be sated. Each moment brought fresh flames, an agony of eternal longing that only grew stronger, consuming them from within. Each of these souls was trapped in a personal hell, tormented by the very desires that had ruled them in life. Watching them, I began to understand the consequences of a life without spiritual purpose, a life spent chasing desires that could never satisfy the soul. I felt a deep chill as I realized how close I had come to ending up like them, trapped in an endless cycle of regret. Amid this sea of tormented souls, I suddenly noticed a figure standing apart. His face was familiar, his presence unmistakable. It was Michael Jackson, but he looked nothing like the energetic performer I had known from the world of music. His face bore the lines of deep sorrow, his eyes haunted by regret and sadness. As he looked at me, a profound sense of empathy filled me. I could feel his pain, a pain that went far beyond fame or fortune. He spoke to me, his voice a low murmur filled with remorse. I spent my life chasing fame, wealth, thinking it would bring me happiness, but it only dulled my soul, pulling me further from what truly mattered. He shared how he had once thought his talent could bring hope and joy to others, yet over time, he realized his success had left him feeling hollow. I built my life around the applause, the lights, but it was all an illusion. Each time I stood on stage, I drifted further from peace, from God, from myself. His voice cracked, and I saw tears in his eyes. I thought I was strong, but my strength only drove me deeper into emptiness. His words struck me deeply. Here was a man the world had idolized, a man who seemed to have everything, yet he was broken. His fame, his success, they had separated him from his soul, from the peace he had once known. His life had become a tragic example, a reminder of the dangers of worldly success when it comes at the expense of spiritual truth. In his confession, I saw a reflection of my own choices, my own hollow pursuits. I realized how easy it was to be consumed by ambition, to be blinded by the lure of fame and success until there was nothing left but a void. Michael's words forced me to confront the emptiness I had been running from, and in that moment, I felt the weight of my own regrets. As I watched the endless suffering of souls around me, feeling the oppressive weight of regret that filled this place, I suddenly sensed a strange force pulling me. It was as if an invisible hand was lifting me out of this darkness, guiding me towards something beyond. At first, it was a faint sensation, but soon it grew stronger, becoming a powerful current of light that surrounded me, drawing me away from the relentless cycle of torment. The light grew brighter and enveloped me, filling me with a warmth and peace I hadn't felt in years. It was like returning home after a long journey, a sense of belonging that soothed every part of me. I realized then that I was in some state between life and death, suspended in a realm that was neither one nor the other. And in that moment, I understood that this was my chance to return, that I was being given a choice. The light intensified, its energy filling the hollowness inside me and soothing wounds I hadn't even known were there. Then, suddenly, the light vanished, and I found myself back in a hospital room, surrounded by sterile white walls and the rhythmic hum of medical machines. I opened my eyes, blinking against the starkness, feeling disoriented yet somehow profoundly aware. My heart beat steadily, my lungs filled with air, and although I was physically weakened, a new strength was rising within me. Felt surreal to be alive again. The memories of what I had just experienced, of that dark, empty realm and the souls trapped within it, were vivid, as if they had been seared into my mind. I remembered every face, every voice, every moment of pain and realization, and I knew without a doubt that it had been real. This wasn't a dream. It was a journey, one that had forever altered my understanding of life, death, and everything in between. With a profound clarity, I recognized the purpose of my return. I had been given a second chance, a chance to live differently, to find true meaning and fulfillment. I understood that the path I had been on was one of self-destruction, driven by empty pursuits and shallow pleasures that had led me to the very edge of despair. But this experience had shown me the truth of my existence, that life wasn't about chasing fleeting highs or material success, but about nurturing something much deeper. I realized that my life was meant to be lived with purpose, to be aligned with the spiritual values I had ignored for so long. This awakening filled me with a powerful sense of responsibility to embrace life with gratitude and to focus on things that genuinely mattered. I resolved from that moment to dedicate myself to a path of love, humility, and faith, a path that would honor the lessons I had learned and the second chance I had been given. Everything now felt like a gift. I began to repair the relationships I had neglected, to reconnect with loved ones, and to find peace in simple moments. I no longer felt the urge to chase after the things that had once consumed me, like wealth, recognition, or superficial successes. Instead, I sought solace in faith, in prayer, and in small acts of kindness. I found joy in the things that truly nourished my spirit. This experience had transformed me completely. The fame, the ambition, the drive for more, all these desires had lost their allure. Now, I understood that true peace came from within, from living a life rooted in love, compassion, and connection to something greater than myself. Life felt fragile, precious, and filled with opportunities one had once overlooked. I now understood that existence extended far beyond what we can see and touch, and that real contentment only comes by aligning oneself with God and embracing the gift of life fully. I vowed to live each day with purpose, honoring this new beginning, and to be a source of light and hope for others in a world often consumed by darkness. Every day after that experience felt like a blessing. I no longer took anything for granted. I no longer chased after shallow pleasures or sought validation in the eyes of others. Instead, I embraced each moment with gratitude, seeking to live a life filled with meaning and purpose. I reached out to the people I had pushed away, mending relationships I had neglected. I found comfort in prayer, in quiet reflection, and in reconnecting with my faith. The things I once dismissed as unimportant had become the foundation of my new life. My journey to the edge of existence had changed me forever. Fame, wealth, and status no longer held the same allure. They were shadows, illusions that had once clouded my vision. Now, I sought a life grounded in love, humility, and spiritual connection. I knew now that life was fragile, that each breath was a gift. This experience had shown me that the true nature of life lay beyond the material world, that true peace could only be found by turning toward God. And so, I vowed to live each day with intention, to honor this second chance, and to be a light in a world that so often seems lost in darkness.